Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. I'm Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Mike.
And this is a podcast about whatever grand subject we think we're going to start hammering away at. What have we chosen this week?
We discussed happiness as a topic.
You sound a little echoey and different this week, Ivanka. Are you in your usual hometown of Brighton?
No, I am not, Michael. I am on the Croatian island of Brač in a small place called Sutivan. And I'm currently in a building site.
Okay.
Wearing a woolly hat and a puffer jacket. But I've got internet and I've got electricity. So
that's splendid.
What more can a person wish for in these modern times?
Well, and what's your connection to this place?
Well,
Is it just a nice place?
It is a nice place. I do know people here. I've visited people. So my father's oldest friend has a house here, and we come and visit them every summer. And last summer, my husband and I stumbled upon a house that we could afford. So we've bought a house here, and now we're doing it up. Well, we're not doing it up. We are paying people to do it up.
Some builders are doing it up. How are the builders? Are they all right?
They are all right, yeah.
Okay, that's the half the battle, isn't it?
It is.
So I understand. I live in a house I live in my girlfriend's house, and she went through all that to get it kind of done. But I have absolutely no idea of what is involved in these things. It all sounds very stressful.
Well, I don't find it particularly stressful. I think you have to accept that you're doing something remotely, that it's a luxurious position to be in, and so far we seem to have got away with choosing tiles via WhatsApp.
Excellent.
And whilst it's lovely, and I'm very, very happy that this is a bit of a childhood dream come true to have a house on a Dalmatian island, it is not any sort of super high-end, super luxurious. But it is very, very nice. So
not yet.
You gotta. I think you have to. If you are doing up a place, you have to spend within what's reasonable for the property. So
okay.
So we're going on affordable tiles and that kind of thing. So it's okay. Very nice. I had hoped we'd have a chimney though by now. Because this renovation.
There's a hole where there should be a chimney, or
no. There's the chimney goes all the way up to the roof, but hasn't gone through the roof yet. So all this renovation work actually started from we really need a chimney if we're going to come here in winter. And they were like, well, if we're going to build a chimney, well then we might as well. And then if we're going to do that, then we might as well. And so we're might as well doing everything that we want to do in one go.
Okay.
So
nice.
There you go. So here I am.
So that's where you've been travelling a lot this week, and you're kind of you're away for the holiday season.
Yes, we tend to drive across Europe. So we have a camper van, or a van we can sleep in but not cook in. And we have driven here. Lots of people. In winter, it's taken us 3 days. Some people would think that was a ridiculous road trip, but it was part of my childhood to be carted to and from Yugoslavia to England.
Are you staying in hotels, or is this a some sort of self-contained van you can sleep in?
Summertime, we always stay in the van, but as we have a small child and it's winter, we have stayed in cheap motel type places. So it's nice.
We used to drive through Europe every year to visit my grandparents in Cologne. So it would be my father driving a car with 6 or 7 children in it. And it would generally break down in France on the way back and be a bit of a nightmare. It was just always these cars that we used to drive, Ford Escort, just had a tendency to die mid-trip pretty reliably. So I just have memories of being brought through France in sort of on a tow truck, and my father melting down with stress. But it was nice out there when we got there. It was
It's
funny how grandparents are allowed to give you ice creams every day, which you don't get at home.
Even in winter.
Well, this was summer. We'd usually go, so I think Christmas. I think we did do a Christmas there, but yeah, it might have been a different thing. But there's probably ice creams at Christmas.
Well, these friends of my father's who live down the road. And who we are staying with, they are effectively sort of grandparent age, and my child has been overindulged with chocolates and ice creams, even though it's winter time. But that's
it's cheating, really, isn't it? I'd say
it is. She did have an ice cream confiscated till after lunch, which was the most sort of parenting type activity they've done. Mostly they just like, okay, you want some more chocolate? Oh, go on, have some more chocolate. But yeah, so here I am, slightly echoey, but nonetheless committed to our little project, our grand project.
Our grand little project.
Yeah.
If we can keep going through this, then we can keep going through everything. Hang, as Limmy would say. I've been watching a lot of Limmy on YouTube this week.
What is Limmy?
And Limmy's a Scottish comedian that has a very thick Glaswegian accent. And some very good observations. It's also a Flash developer.
Oh, really?
From the old school. Yeah, so he's but he got his TV show. It's very good. Anyway.
Does he make nerdy jokes about Flash?
No.
No. Oh.
He's like me if I was Scottish and sort of a bit more successful. And a comedian. So very different. But he does like music production live streams sometimes where he just kind of makes joke songs, techno. Don't know why what a tangent to go down.
I'm going to look him up. So yes, what about you? Have you been anywhere this week?
I haven't been anywhere, but I've had a very kind of an intense week. I decided it was time to start earning some money. I said that, didn't I, last week? But yeah, I've been sort of interviewing for jobs. And yeah, just as I was about to take one, like another one came out of nowhere and it just sounded much more interesting. So I'm taking that. And it's hopefully got a bit of social value and kind of connecting with some of the stuff we were saying about the Meaning Conference. And I've got my 4 days a week. That seems to be fine. So I'll be able to do our podcast record every Friday and have a bit of time to edit it. So that this should keep going. But it does mean that my regular, everyday kind of Instagrams are going to drop off because I'm going to be at work, I'm afraid. Because you guys haven't paid me on Patreon. No one's bought my album. And this is no route for paying the rent. But no, it's fine. And I was feeling, just as I was feeling like nobody cared about anything I was doing, suddenly I sort of posted a video on someone got in touch with me from some big sort of music tech website and asked if I'd make them some videos. And apparently all of those people had been like watching my videos and deciding what sort of thing they liked best. And like they've even sort of like, I think as a little bit of a future carrot stick thing, they're like, well, maybe, we are looking for sort of like someone to present the synth content on our thing. And like, maybe you could, I'm like, oh, I could be a presenter, a YouTube presenter. And people would look at my face and I would show them how to use synthesizers. And then I would be famous.
Don't knock it. There's all those things you see about young children who run YouTube channels and are millionaires.
Yeah, well.
You could be one of those YouTube millionaires.
Far from, well, I think to do that you need to find, I think that's unboxing or gaming and stuff, isn't it, for that? Or just pretending that you're scared by stupid computer games and being slightly racist. One of your Brighton...
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, no, I'm alleged, some fairly outright
oh dear.
Things on certain YouTubers. No. Well, I mean, it's just like there's hope that maybe in a few months' time, maybe I can like sort of not have to work all the time at that point. Although I think I've had a really good stretch this year, so it's probably time to do something a little bit more like people want instead of what I want to do.
That's one way of putting it. I haven't thought about it that way.
But anyway, it's like the cusp of giving up, or kind of like feeling like I'd had enough, and then the universe sort of threw me a bit of a bone this week and went, "No, don't give up completely." Yeah, so that's fine, and so I'm going to start in on that tomorrow.
Excellent.
And have a little bit of, and I'll be able to enjoy my Christmas a bit more because I'll know that I've got some money coming in.
Very good. So when do you start?
Freaking out. Tomorrow. And then I'll do a couple of days next week, and then I'll be kind of working 4 days a week in the new year.
Blimey, what day is it tomorrow? Friday?
Yeah.
So you're starting a Friday before Christmas?
Oh, yes. I don't think it's going to be the most
productive day ever.
High quality day to be starting.
So you'll find out where the kettle is and what the fire routine is and how often the fire alarm is tested.
I have we'll see. I think it's going to be a bit more intense than that.
Sorry,
that's all good.
Was I dissing your new job?
No. That would be the normal situation, but I think it's going to be like jump in with the founder and another guy that's been doing loads of tech exploration and kind of try and get everything out of their brains into my brain as quickly as possible so that I can be thinking about it in the back of my head.
So you're going to be working with the founder?
Yeah, and also it's backed by a South African rich person who wants to do philanthropy. So we'll see if I've learnt from my mistakes there.
Marvellous.
At least I'll know the warning signs.
Yeah.
I'll know what to look out for. And hopefully not
that'd be exciting.
Come out of this project destroyed. Sorry, Ubuntu. So, shall we move on to our topic?
See, I was reluctant to commit wholeheartedly to our topic because I know you know a lot about happiness. You've read a lot about happiness. You've made an app about happiness called Happiness.
Yes.
So I feel like I'm going to be missing references. But, maybe I can just make shit up this week completely.
I think like we've both been around long enough that we have some opinions on these things.
We do.
But yes, I suppose it's fair to say that I have spent a lot more time thinking about this in anger. Reading.
I did quickly last night go, I did read that book, that happiness book, that Stumbling Upon Happiness book.
Oh, yeah.
And I quickly found it on my Kindle, and then I was like, that's not really what I'm reading at the moment. So I refused to refresh my memory about what it was in Stumbling Upon Happiness that was... Because I bought it for somebody at least, and I think you recommended me the book in the first place.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember which one that was. It's quite a big one.
Daniel
you
Gilbert.
Won't know if it's on... Yeah.
But it was... So here's my poorly remembered theory number 1. It's mostly about not wishing your life away and being present in the moments that are here.
Yes, most knowledge about how to be happy involves, being in the moment. And because, most of the things that make you unhappy are either worrying about what might happen or remembering bad things that happened. But a lot more worrying about what might happen because it's weird because as you move through your life, what's behind you is one thing, but what's ahead of you is a multitude of possibilities. At any one moment, you're faced with this multitude of unknowns, and if and your kind of attitude to those unknowns and the things that you're anticipating will have a pretty profound effect on your happiness. But I mean, shall we start? I mean, this is, I don't know. We could start off by saying, I mean, would you consider yourself? Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm a happy person.
Yeah.
I have, like everybody, surely, I have days and times when I'm not. Things that that don't particularly make me happy, or I don't feel happy when I think about. But I've got plenty of blessings to count when I'm feeling miserable, I think. What about you, Michael? Are you happy?
I think I'm pretty much happy. I mean, I've got sort of a nice sort of bedrock of a really good relationship and a very supportive partner, and yeah, if I'm unhappy, it's because I'm just feeling a bit disappointed at the moment that my year didn't go better, and that no one likes my album, and that I can't seem to get any followers on anything. But I don't know. It's like. I'm sort of feeling I'm sort of looking for some value in the world, and that's one of the reasons. But I'm feeling a lot happier having kind of nailed down a job that sounds interesting, and I think for me, I think I need to sort of feel useful, like and that comes down to feeling like I'm kind of helping people somewhere or another, even if I don't realise that's what's making me feel better. But it's either I don't know. That was a bit roundabout. I think I'm okay. I think I'm just on the cusp. I'm kind of... There's lots of short-term things that are sort of like trying to get on top of me, but I think I have a good enough foundation and understanding of what to take seriously and what not, that I would call myself happy enough.
Well,
God.
So there's there's a couple of things. One, true. Does nobody like your album, Michael? Is that true?
I know. That's
truth?
Definitely some. That's definitely some all or nothing thinking there, isn't it?
Is that you fishing?
No, it's not. It's not me fishing.
Oh.
It's I know. I'm just thinking of this PR campaign, and it's got all the reviews back, and there's just this average review of 3 stars or slightly lower now, and lots of people saying just a bit nonplussed. But and then I kind of thought, yeah, probably right.
So,
in the grand scheme of things, I mean, considering I did it pretty much on my own, it's still pretty good to have done something like that, especially when I recorded it very quickly. But I was hoping it would click a bit more. But and I've been waiting a long time to find out if anyone, if it clicks, but it hasn't quite had the. I sort of did it to see. And then kind of 2 years later, it's like I still haven't seen, and it's got blown up into this slightly bigger thing. And then it's just trying to remember that the spirit in which it was created was, relatively throwaway, albeit a culmination of a lot of experiences and work. I like it. I haven't listened to it.
I listened to it. There's a lot to like. I'd say.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I think if it's a choice. It's a choice whether you are looking for the positive or negative, isn't it? Like that's something I realised after a few years of trying to understand happiness. Was I realised I'd got to a point where I was in the habit of looking for the negative in any situation. I probably still am a bit, but I didn't realise, after a certain point, I realised I'd taken that to such an absurd degree that there were so many good things that I could be looking at, but I was choosing to look at this one sliver of things that I wasn't quite happy with. It's like sort of, I always imagine like I'm in a room and the sun's coming through the window. And so the bright areas are the happy areas, and then there's the shadows. And I was sort of like, moving, the sun was kind of rising or whatever, and the sunlight was sort of getting bigger and bigger, and I'm just kind of like moving further and further into the corner until I'm sort of like crouched in this one sort of sliver of darkness, even though all I have to do is, it would be so much easier just to step across and just not worry about the little dark corner, because it's and that kind of made me appreciate, people say it's a choice, isn't it? And I always thought that was kind of naive to think that you can choose to be optimistic, because there's clearly so many bad things. But then I thought, it's basically, there's a million ways you can look at it, and it all comes down to your perception of the world. So you might as well try and be a glass half full person, just because if I applied the same creativity to finding the glass half full as I was doing, sort of unconsciously, to finding it half empty, it's easy.
I think there's something. I was trying to decide if it was a British cultural thing or just people. I think there's something about being negative or criticising things or finding what's wrong that is associated with cleverness, and seeing what's positive or good about a thing is associated with some sort of naivety or stupidity or Pollyanna type, look at the rainbow type attitude. And so often one encounters in a work situation and in life people who kind of, there are plenty of people, with the internet being what it is these days, there are plenty of people making themselves a podium, giving themselves a platform to chuck mud at what other people are doing or finding fault with what other people are doing or criticising. But actually, it actually takes a lot more energy and creativity to take a shitty situation, try and find some positive way out of it, or try and look for a solution. And I think there is there's this sort of creativity in an engineering way and creativity in an artistic way. And engineers often tend towards that whole breakdown and find the problems. But that's partly, I think, so that they can understand in order to invent a solution. But then you've got this sort of intellectual critiquing that really gets on my nerves. It really does. People who sit there, writing blog posts about, approaches to design or product or how these people in this company could be doing their work differently. It's like, well, you go and do it then. You go and do it then if you're so clever.
And it's like the internet. I've seen so many on YouTube, like The Last Jedi. Oh, how Mark Hamill thought it was terrible. Like all these clickbait.
Talk about it. I haven't seen it yet.
No, I haven't seen it yet either. I'm sort of saving it till the new year, so I don't know what happens. But there's this market for having the opposite opinion. That people just, it's either just clickbait or it's just trolling. Kind of going, oh well, most people like this thing and it's really good and it's it's a lot of work and it's it's not intended to be as important as all that, but there's always someone ready to kind of jump into that kind of those trousers of here's everything that's wrong with it. I've been watching a lot of videos recently about everything wrong with the Everything Wrong With YouTube channel, where this guy just sort of like kind of reels off a load of nitpicky nonsense that's sort of not that funny, and I sort of unsubscribed from it a couple of years ago because I was just like, this is stupid, but it still kind of gets surfaced at the top of YouTube's content for whatever reason, and it's just utterly just it's sort of created by someone that was a bit of a kind of viral marketing expert, and they kind of started doing this, and it's kind of cynical and it's kind of shoddy, and it's just, but it makes them a lot of money. Yeah,
it just reminds me of that sort of sniggering Beavis and Butthead type behaviour, like when I was.
But even that, at least they seem to be having a good time. Like this is even worse.
They were fun. They were having fun. Because I don't know what it is. I mean, when I was 14, 15, 16, certainly, being that teenage time, it's almost not cool to find things nice or fun or to be elated by things. It's much more cool to find things dreary or boring, or I don't know, you kind of like admitting in school that you really enjoyed an essay topic. It's just not cool. Wow.
And I certainly never would have. I even with the best will in the world, I'm still a very kind of low-key expresser of excitement about anything. I'll be like, it's good.
But,
and that means I thought it was one of the best things I've ever seen.
It's like,
it's all right.
Yeah, it's all right.
Well done.
Yeah, nice.
Cool.
I like that.
And then people think I'm being sarcastic, and I'm like, I'm not. I really liked it. What do you want from me? Jeez.
I'm doing my best. But it's
a lovely jumper.
Thank you.
I'm a little
like, I don't think I'd been happy and like really kind of experienced happiness until like my relationship in my mid-20s. I suddenly kind of got to experience what that kind of like full like, and it was sort of like my brain had become fully activated, and I thought, I used to think that being happy was just being like not knowing, like just being too stupid to understand how much there is to be unhappy about. But like when I was feeling happy, it was like I was cleverer and I was funnier, and like people around me were sort of like, I sort of thought, I saw this thing of the happier you are, the more it's like the more you have, the more you get. And yeah, certainly, yeah, and I've always been sort of self-fulfilling prophecies of the depressive. Like sort of frustrating, because it's like, everything's going to go wrong, and then when everything goes wrong, it's like, I knew it was going to go wrong. Yeah, well, that's because
you're a miserable fuck. But there is that on the subject of biology in our brains. When we are happy, we are more creative. If we are afraid, angry, scared, our brains narrow down into flight or flight, and we can't then think creatively. And that's just that's just the way we are. So we can think much more broadly when we're not terrified or sad or unhappy or trying to get out of something. So, there are serious benefits to feeling happy or learning how to help yourself not feel sad. In some situations, it's really, really hard to see the positive, no doubt.
Yeah.
And there's sometimes one does have to take some time and just accept the unhappiness chemicals for a bit, and recognise them. But I think there are things, certainly as I've got older, there are definitely things that have made me very unhappy over the years. But I sometimes think I'm better at knowing what I need to do to shake myself out of it, instead of wallowing or dwelling too long. But
yeah,
Well,
and this was where my app came from as well. Because I thought, okay, happiness is something worth having, and the first thing as an engineer that you want to do to improve something is to start measuring it. So, and especially knowing that the way we feel now colours how we think we will feel in the future and how we felt in the past, like really strongly, to the point that you can do an experiment where you can put some people in a room, feed half of them and ask them, feed half of them and don't feed the other half, ask them how hungry they're going to be in 6 hours. The ones that have just been fed just say probably not that hungry, and the ones that haven't said, yeah, I'll probably be really hungry. Depression gets you because it makes you it colours your memories as well and colours your predictions. So you're feeling bad now, and then that means that you think that you will always feel bad. Whatever you imagine sort of feels like it's going to feel bad. Yeah. And then when you remember stuff, it's kind of coloured with it as well. So as a scientist, I thought, well, let's capture the data at the time, and it's much harder to kind of be able to say kind of these statements like, I've always been unhappy, when you can go, but I did think that I was happy 2 weeks ago, so I've got to take that somewhat seriously.
Yeah, but that's a known thing, though, isn't it? Sort of diary keeping as a way of helping people who suffer from depression or who aren't. That sort of journaling.
Well, I mean, I always found it a bit. I mean, I find the kind of sit down and write your feelings or kind of try and fill in this CBT form pretty. It's just like homework when the last thing you want to do is homework, because unhappiness is cathartic, right? It's quite addictive. It's sort of like, I feel terrible. I want to, crying is cathartic, and feeling bad is sort of like you like it in this sick way, because you sort of feel like, and it's sort of the idea that you want to shake yourself out of that even is especially when it's going to take work, is like, well, I'm fine like this, I'll just do this.
Yeah, so I get that crying is cathartic, because I've long held this theory that a lot of books that people say are good books, they're just confused because the book made them cry and that felt good, so they think the book was good, which I'm not entirely convinced is true. But so I get that crying is cathartic. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that feeling depressed is cathartic. But you can be, I'm not going to speak for you. I certainly can indulge myself if I'm feeling low, and then I can I have to watch that I'm not overindulging it. Because it is work to not indulge sadness, I think, or I don't know. Is sadness depression? Are they the same thing?
No, so I think it's important, as Inside Out showed us. It's important to allow sadness to it's important you should feed it a little bit sometimes, just so you can get to that point of that cathartic state that then you can move through it, and if you can sort of cry it all out, or other people can see that you're sad, then that can help you get through it.
Are you referencing that animated movie Inside Out?
Yeah,
I've not seen it.
Brilliant. Oh my goodness, why? It's one of the best things I've ever seen, and it's one of those things where I'm like, how did you even come up with this?
Oh.
And I've sort of seen a little bit of talk on it, and there is some sort of theory behind the choices they made, but it's just absolutely incredible piece of work.
Okay.
Pixar. I mean, if you're not all the Pixar stuff is.
Yeah, but I've been saving up a few of these kids' movies till I have to watch only kids' movies.
I mean, I wouldn't. I've watched all the Pixar films more than once. I think they're some of the best things out there.
Okay, all right. Inside Out. Inside Out. Okay. I've had some nice things on the subject of counting your blessings. My little toddler and me picked some tangerines off our own tangerine tree. How cool is that?
Imagine
that. It's very exciting.
How are they?
They're very nice, actually.
They're nice.
They were very nice.
They're not sort of horrible.
They are not horrible. They are nice. They are easy peelers. I don't know.
That winds me up.
What?
The word easy peelers. I was almost just going to jump in with, have you seen how these supermarkets are calling them easy peelers? What? There's already a name for this fruit. Why are you coming up with a horrible name for it?
You have the ones that have the horrible skin that's really tight onto the flesh, and then you have the ones where there's a bit of a gap. And they're easy to peel, Michael. Come on.
Push.
Anyway, so we did that because the house that we bought has a garden that has fully grown tangerine trees on, and we've planted an orange tree now to add to our collection. And it's got loquats. Everyone wants me to cut down the loquat trees. Do you know what a loquat tree is?
I do not know what a loquat tree is.
I did not know what a loquat tree was until I bought this house in the garden. No, it's like a soft, sort of like peachy apricot-y, but it doesn't have a stone inside. It has seeds. Don't know. I read about it on Tinterwebs, and it's supposed to be from China or somewhere. But it's evergreen. But it has big leaves, but so it's kind of evergreen and deciduous at the same time, so it's constantly shedding leaves. So all the neighbours hate the leaves, and I've got 3 giant shade-throwing loquat trees in my garden. And I frankly enjoy the shade in summertime more than I don't enjoy their asking me to cut down my loquat trees. So the loquat trees are currently winning. But yes, I'm going to invite our jam making friend over so we can make some jam. That's my next plan. So I'm going to retire to Brach and sell jam.
I see.
and record a weekly podcast about tangerines and jam.
Tangerines? Is that what you're trying to this is what you're trying to move the podcast towards now?
Yeah, fruit.
I know this is supposed to be a grand podcast, but let's try and get a little bit more fruit content in every week.
It's a bit more different things you can make with loquats. Jam, pie.
Horrible bitter jam.
I don't think it's going to be bitter.
No.
Anyway, I'll let you know. So
that's just my experience of. That's my experience of homemade jam in my house. It's like, some lovely, horrible, bitter jam.
Really? My grandpa took jam making very seriously. So we had lots of jam and it was all good, I have to say. No complaints about Grandpa's jam.
Okay, that's good. Well, he probably put some sugar in it, enough sugar.
Yeah, he did.
I think if you're like skimping on the sugar, horrible jam.
So yes, so happiness, it's a constant endeavour.
And well, it's is it a right?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. Is it a right to be happy?
So, I mean, should anyone feel entitled to happiness? I'm not sure that's necessarily reasonable.
Well, it depends on your definition of what happiness is or what's going to make you happy. Because there's also, I think it is in that, I'm shaking my finger at Michael now as I remind myself of something. There is definitely that study, which may have been in that Dan Gilbert book, which is about the fact that people are exponentially happier as they earn more, up to a point of about something like $50,000. And then after that,
$70,000 or £55,000.
And then after that, basically, you have to get a shed load more money to feel any happier, because once you're
it stops being the thing, because like the absence of money can make you unhappy, but the presence of more money doesn't
necessarily
add any happiness.
No.
It's just having enough that you don't have to worry about money that's why that number is that number.
Worrying about money is definitely an unhappy making thing.
Yeah, that's
sure.
That's another thing that's been bothering me like this last. So again, like having a job lined up, it's like money is going to be all right,
relax. Yeah, that's for sure. That's I think I've come to so because I've now freelanced for few years, not that long. I freelanced a lot before, sort of into my 20s, and then I got sick of freelancing and I just wanted a proper job to get paid monthly and not have to worry about chasing people for money. I had a few things where people didn't pay me, and then but now I'm kind of more comfortable. I had all these jobs where there's this perception of having a full-time job and a perception that you're going to get paid ad infinitum and this job's never going to end, when actually though I never got made redundant, or thankfully that never happened to me, but it is a bit of a perception of safety. Yeah. And actually you can have that. I can convince myself of that same feeling freelancing. I don't think it's any less secure. I just don't get paid holidays. Which is a bummer.
Well, this is what I'm sort of taking a probably permanent position. So I've asked for, because I just want to be able to go on holiday without having to feel like I'm missing out on, like I'm going to pay for it. It's going to be a problem later. But also I'm going to, I'm taking some equity in this thing as well. Ooh. So finally doing something a bit more grown up, so that hopefully if I, do some good work, then I will actually, proportionally benefit to some extent.
Well, I look forward to learning more about this thing that you're going to work on.
It's to do with blockchains, but it sounds like it might not be bullshit. So imagine that.
That's very exciting. I think
can you imagine?
Yeah, I need to internalise sort of my mental model of blockchain is not yet there. I don't really. I've sort of vaguely.
Yeah, me too.
Cast my eyes at it and half listened, and I've not internalised what it is or what it means. So I feel like I have a gap in that understanding. So I look forward to you telling me all about it.
I'm gonna be so fluent. I'm gonna be assuming so much knowledge in any blockchain related conversation now, because my understanding will be loads better. It's gonna be beautiful. Happiness. There's another book I read. I will insert the title of it here. Making Happy People by Paul Martin. Okay, so now that we know the title of it, it has three. It says there are three aspects to happiness. One is the presence of sort of joyful things. Another is the absence of pain, and the third is the sort of general kind of feeling of like sort of meaning, like overall, like what are your prospects, what's your current sort of wider situation. So if all those, if you've got something, so there's sort of three axes, three dimensions of sort of talking about happiness. So is something causing you pain? Is something, is a lack of money causing you problems? Then another one is, have I got things in my life that bring me joy? And then the other one is, do I have meaning? Am I on the right track? Like more existential concerns that, we all think about.
Obviously, it's very difficult to feel happy if you've got proper problems. I think sometimes I can be a bit... So managing people over the years has taught me that just because I don't think what somebody's presenting to me is a problem doesn't mean that they don't feel a great deal of pain. And that's something that's sometimes quite tricky, or has been quite tricky for me to deal with. I was like, that's not a problem. You choose not knowing which, I don't know, house to buy of these two or something like that. It's like, that's not really a problem. That's a good problem to have. That's not really something that... But I understand that a lot of people... It's like when you said doing up a house is very stressful. I think you can make it very stressful. I mean, this house was supposed to be ready for us for this Christmas. We could have made it into a big problem. But what we did was, on our drive over here, went, it's a good thing that it's not finished yet, because now we can inspect it before it's finished and make sure we can correct any misdirection that's happened remotely.
That glass
is half full. And and it's an opportunity for us to chat with the builders face to face and walk around the site, so we're not flying backwards and forwards. We are relying on the internet and the presence of a very reliable cousin of mine to report back on what's happening. So I think that the sort of presence of pain is very difficult. And as we've discussed in previous podcasts when we're talking about death in particular, there are some situations that you do have to accept that you cannot fix and you can't improve, and you have to learn to live with those problems because you can't make them go away. But in those moments, knowing how to find joy in things is quite useful, and I think that is a skill that you can practice and get better at.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely.
That sort of, going for a walk in the sunshine, driving across Europe and looking at all the beautiful views. There are, however hippie and Pollyanna and naive that sounds, there are some very simple things that you can do to sort of open your eyes and go, do you know what? That's really beautiful, and that is making me feel happy. And what is wrong with learning how to do that?
Just look up sometimes instead of kind of like staring at the ground going, oh, everything's really stressful.
Everything's awful. Oh, woe is me. I don't know which tiles to choose for my kitchen in my summer house. It's like, oh dear. So yes, that's my Christmas present to everybody. Look at the sky. Isn't it amazing?
So that's your advice. So if you were to give advice to a random person, how do I be happy?
How do you be happy? It's hard. It isn't hard. Well,
it shouldn't be hard.
It shouldn't be hard. It is that balance of the pain and joy, and the meaning thing. I think the meaning axes of your three-legged stool there. The meaning bit is the trickiest. I think for many people. Because we don't always have the luxury. I consider myself to be in a very luxurious position where I enjoy what I do, and I've been doing it for long enough that I can choose between a job that I think has meaning and one that will simply pay the bills. And I think that's but then if meaning's not going to come from your work that you spend lots of time doing, then you have to seek it elsewhere. I think
Yes.
So
yeah, well, or yeah, that's tricky, and
hobbies. Do you have any hobbies? Or is everything
do I have any?
Is everything you do you do it really seriously, or do you have something that you consider a hobby?
Because it's always been like, it just felt like, if I had to say music was a hobby, I would just have to but I don't know, so I did have this, a moment a while back where I was like, I sort of found a part-time working situation. I felt like I was doing enough music to not feel guilty about that. And I still had a bit of free time. And I was like, I've got time for a hobby. I could try and come up with a hobby. But I don't know, I never really... I did a jigsaw this week. That was quite fun. But that was more just because I wanted to, really just not... it's good. It sort of tricks your brain into thinking you're doing something enough that you don't... it's not boring. But it's completely kind of pointless as well. Yeah. So you sort of it just kind of lets your brain loosen up. And I knew that I was probably going to be working soon. So I quite enjoyed that. I think I'd like to, I don't know, something maybe a sort of physical thing I'd quite like to try and do. But yeah, I'm not really, I don't think I've ever really had any hobbies. Really, and I used to play computer games a lot even, but then it just felt like time wasting. It felt like a big waste of time. Cooking, could you call that? I was doing that for a while, doing fancy plating up things and making that look nice, posting on Instagram. I was quite...
Don't know, is cooking a hobby?
Cooking.
Is fancy cooking a hobby?
I don't know, but I don't know, what is a hobby?
I don't know. I was just curious, because what
are your hobbies?
I don't really have any. I don't think I have any hobby. You know what you said about things being pointless? I really enjoy doing jigsaws. Do I make time to do jigsaws? No, never. It is a pointless activity. I can knit. I'm a very capable knitter. But I never finish anything because, frankly, once I've worked out the pattern or whatever it is, I have very little interest in finishing the item. I even started a hat for my child 3 years ago, and I chose a bigger pattern because I thought, even at my speed, I'll finish it. But I haven't, because I bought some circular needles. I hadn't done that before. I was like, that's how you do it. Great, okay. And I don't tend to cooking. Maybe I do cook. I cook a lot, and I enjoy cooking, and I do like occasionally doing. I do fancy things, as you put it. But you have to cook anyway to eat. So that's just putting more effort or taking more pleasure in an activity that's not pointless. That's how I see it. I'm trying to work out if this means anything or it says anything about us. But for example, I much prefer to ride a bike to somewhere to get my exercise than, for example, go to a gym, which is doing exercise for the sake of doing exercise, which doesn't seem to, you're not getting anywhere.
I had never been to a gym in my life really until the middle of this year, whereupon I started going to the gym 3 times a week in the morning, and it's this sort of small group personal training thing, and it's great. I just kind of go in at 7 in the morning, someone tells me what to do for an hour, make sure I don't get lazy, helps me learn how to do all the different things, because I was sort of feeling like I was doing one kind of exercise, but I kind of wanted to feel a bit more, better about my body, I guess, and learn how to do that stuff. But and it doesn't feel pointless at all. It feels sort of, it feels like a really good baseline to start your day, to sort of okay, my physical needs are dealt with. Because when I wasn't doing that, I was running every morning for sort of 8 to 10k every morning, which was fine as well. But that that's again sort of pointless exercise. But it's actually quite hard to find something you really need to do something strenuous. And like riding a bike to work, you'll find a way of making that easy on yourself.
True.
Whereas running, it's hard to sort of take a shortcut there. And when there's someone sort of saying, oh, chest up, do 10 more of these, it's hard to kind of like, because you will find the path of least resistance when you're on your own. Like it's just going to happen.
But this is one aspect of staying happy that we haven't mentioned, which is the whole physically fit thing, or doing physical exercise thing definitely is a critical part of my existence and my happiness, for sure.
It's so important.
So I do Pilates a lot. I've just started this thing called gyrotonic.
Sounds painful.
It's not.
Sounds vibratory.
No.
Gyratory.
No, it's not. It's more circular. So it's kind of like a Pilates machine. I don't think one is supposed to draw parallels between Pilates and gyrotonic. I think they are very different things.
Was it invented by L. Ron Hubbard?
No, it was not. It was invented by some Hungarian dancer person. So I feel it's sort of very strength and movement type exercise. So it feels very good for somebody who's got a dodgy back like what I have. So
I see.
There you go. That's the other thing. Finding joy thing. Yeah, so your 3-legged stools missing the exercise leg. And another thing that I think we haven't we've mentioned but not talked about particularly is meditation itself. That whole kind of act of sitting or being in the moment with your thoughts or chasing them away. Yeah. I find that have you dabbled? Do you meditate?
Yeah, I've done a fairly plenty of meditation. I think. One of my first experiences was going to the London Buddhist Centre, and I had a really sort of euphoric one there where they did this metta bhavana thing, which was all about kind of exuding kind of like goodwill to everyone, and I sort of liked the idea of trying to think of the worst people in the world and being able to sort of send them love as well. And if I could figure that out, then like everything's great, and that's got a really good little. May I be well, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering, and may I progress, which I think kind of links in with those 3 prongs really well.
Yeah.
So the sort of, it's like you can be sort of like free from suffering and sort of fine, but I sort of think that progress, that sense of progress is really important, and I don't like the idea of just sort of resting on my laurels. But then I did the Headspace app, and I kind of went through all that. And I, tweeted the guy when I'd finished it and said, I've finished the app. Will I be able to levitate now?
Did he respond?
He did respond with something or other.
Can
positive. You? Yes. Yes. With only an inch.
I had a similar euphoric. Similarly euphoric, or at least enlightening, trip to the Brighton Buddhist Centre. So I have meditated as well, not always terrible. You know how people talk about, do you have a practice? When you talk about meditation and yoga, I do not, but I have variously been quite dedicated. And I went along to Brighton Buddhist Centre, I think it was, and did a loving kindness meditation, which was similarly sort of enlightening to me. And then I did one because it made me, that whole thing of thinking about somebody who makes you angry and then understanding.
I think it's the same one.
It must be very similar, which is that whole thing of not being able to internalise, not just be told or understand, but actually internalise the idea that them making you angry is, you have a choice of how to respond to them. Like you can control yourself. So that for me was, and then I randomly did a very similar one because when I used to commute to London, using my a record, in fact a podcast. So there's a few good meditation podcasts, and I think they asked you to think about your pets, and I thought one of these lovely realizations I had is that truly with your pet your love is unconditional, because they're not having a chat with you, they're not they're not persuading you of anything, they're just this sort of this creature that obviously rewards you in attention, but they're not buying you things, they're not doing any of these things humans do for you and to you and around you. They're just this creature that is so I found that was a very pleasant, very enjoyable, not pleasant. Pleasant's far too. It's like saying it was nice. It was more than nice. It was a good way to start the day. So
yeah, but you've got to sort of keep it up, I think.
Yeah.
And I had one that I was doing every morning for a while, and I've kind of dropped off. But I'd sort of made my own little kind of bells in a sort of MP3, and sort of done my own little adaptation of the things that I'd liked from a few different ones, and just sort of keep it to 15 minutes, so I can definitely do it every morning. But I've kind of dropped off on that. But that's that kind of like, think about yourself, think about someone close to you, then sort of think about someone that you kind of see but you don't really know.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
And then think about like an enemy sort of person or someone and then think about like everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite a nice progression of
it is.
Just to. But then I just always would. I'll just always kind of like, it'll get to the person that I am upset with at the moment. I'll be trying to kind of like find some empathy, but it's always the same person, and I do it every morning, but they still wind me up.
Do you have that thing where you have imaginary conversations with people in your head?
Of course.
And then
that's
in the. I'm always amazed at how angry I can get at people when I'm filling in their half of the conversation.
Like imagining something and trying to kind of clearly imagine it is almost like creates memories that are almost as good as real, like almost they kind of can be indistinguishable from real memories. So like that's something, it's a technique you can use, I think. Actually, I did, someone else told me to do this inner child one where you had to sort of like, it's kind of a meditation thing where you had to go and speak to your inner child. It's just a YouTube video, like the YouTube thing where you listen to it, and I thought, okay, I'll try this. And actually, it was kind of amazing going through that as well, because I was just like, God, if 10-year-old me could see the room I am sitting in right now, he would flip out. Like, look at all this stuff. Like, and how can you sit there being unhappy when there's all of these toys everywhere? Like, I'm surrounded by like modular synths, the best, like all the best, like stuff. Like it's all around, and I just, that child would have been like, get do anything. You're a really nice camera. You got that computer. Like when I was, 13, all I wanted was 12 was all I wanted was a computer to be able to make music. Like do a paper round, save up. Like anyway, yes. So
yes,
the inner child one is worth doing once or twice, even.
I haven't done. I've only done inner child. Spoken to my inner child in therapy sessions.
Right. Well, I mean,
but I don't remember it being as joyful. People who've just got massive houses and massive bills, and I just don't want that pressure.
Yeah, like what is enough? And then I'm encouraged by like internet billionaires that have just sort of kind of lived in a big place and then just decided they'd actually much rather live in a more compact space and kind of have quite a so bigger isn't always better, and you can only ever you can only be one person, you can only live one life. You can't be in 10 places at once. You can't, if you've got 10 houses across the world and a boat and a this and that, you can't be there. You can't be in all those places at once. So there's a limit to the kind of scope of being an individual human. Like even if like you can sort of be rich enough that you take taxis everywhere so that you're doing things in the taxis and, you're sort of minimising your downtime by not having to wait for a bus. But there's still a hard limit on how many things you can do at once. How many places, how many possessions you can possibly appreciate. And I think I'm certainly beyond that in terms of, I think for creative stuff, it's useful to be able to reach for the thing you need to do something and not have to go, oh God, I haven't got one of those, so I can't do this idea. But I'm very much, I think I've fall into that trap of wanting to be able to be 6 people,
Yeah.
Live for 300 years so that I can do 6 people's worth of stuff, 5 people's worth of stuff.
I look at it, it's like, so, for the listeners, Michael is surrounded by gadgets. So
tools.
He probably does have all the tools he could possibly need, and those that he doesn't, he can make. But especially now that he's found the guy that's got the proper overhead drill, which
exactly,
she's going to make.
That would be the next level.
Difference.
Would be the workshop would be the next level.
Yeah, I do want a workshop. I really, really would like a workshop. I'd like people. Sheds are always somehow associated with men. No, I want a shed. But we. Nick and I talk about these things. So there is a strong environmental reason to not buy a bunch of shit you do not need, and you're buying it purely to have. And in our house, that is a consideration. There is also the fact that the bigger the house, the more stuff you need to buy just to fill it. And you can get away with buying. Doing that motorcycle trip taught us a few things. And one of the things it taught us was that you just don't need that much stuff. I don't know if you've been reading Roz's Trexit blog.
I just watched I haven't read the blog, but I did see the last, the sort of summary.
And in the summary thing, she talked about the fact that, for whatever many months walking across Europe, they just had 3 outfits each or something. And she described it as very wearing. And it is. There is a point, because I've often thought about, finding this item of clothing that I like and just buying 3 of them and just having kind of a uniform just to make life simpler. But even when I've been trekking in the Himalayas and on a motorcycle trip and all sorts of stuff, when I did the Himalayas trip, my mum said, don't forget to just put one nice thing in case you need your spirits lifted. And it's true. You do have these, I think, it's all very well being super minimalist, but there is a moment where you just want to go, do you know what? I cannot wear this black dress one more time. So I want something else. So there's a balance, but I think this idea that having more things. So I buy. Well, it's just a waste of resource.
Well, I was going to say, choice is this. Like, having a little bit of choice is really important, but we're in this culture now that says, gives us infinite choice all the time, and that's another thing that can be shown to lead to a lot of unhappiness. If you constantly feel like you made the wrong choice.
Ooh, yeah.
So in a way, it's easier to be happier if choices are made for you, and if you kind of lack certain freedoms. And sometimes, it's like you sort of envy people that are kind of stuck with their situation, because it does let you kind of relax a little bit in ways that you can't when you're constantly sort of second guessing every decision, or having to choose what to wear every morning and having to do all these things. It's definitely it's this sort of choice paralysis and this sort of anxiety, regrets that we're all exposed to now.
Well, one of my favourite user research interview quotes was a woman. This is years ago now. We were doing testing for a broadband provider. I'd shown her 2 or 3 different pages, 2 or 3 different packages, and I was like, right. So we've spent the last 45 minutes looking at these different pages. I've heard your feedback, blah blah blah. Now, based on what you've seen today, which package would you choose? She put her head in her hand and she just went, choice is a terrible thing. Another thing I could reference, this is about how much less stressful it is if you hand your care to your doctor instead of trying to understand your disease and second guess your doctor. I suppose, there's an element of trust in there that they are going to give you the best advice, and they are going to give you the best treatment. But ultimately, if you are able to just go, you're the doctor, you tell me what to do, that is a much less stressful situation to be in, or takes away one of the major stresses of having some horrible life-threatening disease.
Well, that thing now, they kind of give you this completely arbitrary choices about your own care now. It's like, can you not take responsibility for anything? Like, I'm not the expert here. Can you please?
I don't know.
What the hell?
And then you hear, but then I also know people who really, really question everything. It's just tricky. But anyway, so, I having acceptance and not having choice.
Not having too much choice, having hardly any choice, but having a small number of good options is the ideal situation, I think. And there do not need to be so many different toothpastes.
No.
That's just stupid.
It's fucking...
So, do we have some conclusions? I think there's lots of metrics. I think there's lots of ways of thinking about happiness, satisfaction.
Is it a right? Is it a right? That was one of the questions.
I think the world would be a much better place if everyone was happy. If people had the opportunity to be happy.
True.
And I would love a system where that basic income, that income level was just given to everyone, because I don't see any kind of reason that wouldn't be possible.
No.
Just make sure everyone's got money isn't
a problem.
Yeah. And let them then kind of self-actualize in whatever way they want. Yeah. Because they don't feel sort of trapped. And also, like, imagine if Donald Trump was happy. Wouldn't that be a better place?
I've managed to not mention him once, or Brexit.
Yeah, no, I'm just imagine just if these people were, and sometimes you're sort of doing your meditation, trying to think of someone like, let's wish this person love, because if they were happy, it would be fine.
Yeah.
But it's because they're unhappy that they're trying to fuck things up for everyone.
Yeah, miserable people are often the source of a great deal of unhappiness for other people. That's a problem. So we have in fact, maybe it's not a right, it's a duty.
A duty. I like it. It's not a right.
Keep yourself happy enough that you're not making other people miserable.
Yeah, but that's a trap. That's dangerous.
That's how that computer. Do you remember? Did you ever play Paranoia, the role-playing game?
No.
Anyway, it was basically the computer took over the world, and the computer had been programmed to make people happy, and then after the computer took over the world, to be unhappy was treason, and you could get executed. And that was the game. It was a role-play game. Anyway. So yes, it's dangerous. It does sort of
smack of like, I've got to put my happy pictures on Facebook and show everyone how happy I am, and I'm never, don't feel like, you get some people that, because I kind of, if I'm going to post, I don't like, you kind of want to put something up on Facebook saying you're sad, but then you're like, but anyone's going to always say that you're always sad. And I don't know, you kind of want to present a face.
There is a balance between fucking Stepford wife happy and happy. Because we could go on now for another hour now that you've started on the Facebook status. It's like people that look at me with my perfect family and my perfect life and my perfect everything. You're like, just fuck off. If it catches you on the wrong day, that is really hard. That's not about external signs of happiness. That is just not. It's about not causing misery, not starting arguments, not starting war.
My advice to someone feeling unhappy is do something for someone else and stop worrying about yourself for a bit. And that's as much advice to myself as to anyone else. Because we're social animals, and like that really is kind of a huge source of our kind of meaning and happiness is our relationships with other people. And if you kind of like isolate yourself, then
See, and if you do something nice for the world, the planet, you'll be nice to everybody in one go. How about that? Save the world.
Yes. Ungrateful bastards. This was a podcast.
This was actually, I am really enjoying the therapeutic element of our podcast. But yes, so this was our weekly podcast.
Thank you very much for listening to our weekly podcast. And if you want to find us on social media, you can, and on the internet, just normally. So where can we find you, Ivanka?
At Ivanka on Twitter and ivanka.blog.
Are you eating an easy peel on mic?
They've been staring at me the whole time. I just could not resist any longer.
You can find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter, and my website is michaelforrestmusic.com.
You can find both of us at grandpodcast.com on the interwebs, and on Facebook we're at Grand Podcast, aren't we?
Are we?
Yeah, I think it's at Grand Podcast is how you talk to us, or you just Google Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. That might work now. I don't know. How much SEO have we done? Yeah. Probably not enough.
Well, luckily it's quite a unique pair of words, so as long as you put Michael and Ivanka, you've got a pretty good chance of finding us. It's Grand Podcast on Facebook. Excellent.
And if you want to, you can email us at hello@grandpodcast.com.
And we're going to try and drum up some Patreon support. So for that, go to grandpodcast.com/pledge, or if you're feeling fancy, grandpodcast.com/sledge. Christmassy.
Christmassy. It's very Christmassy.
So thanks everybody for listening, and tweet us, kind of let us know if you gave you any thoughts, and because if you start telling us what you think, then we can start
responding.
Yeah.
Anything you think we should read, watch, listen to, that kind of thing.
Things you disagreed with, as I'm sure there will be a multitude, especially if you can sort of give us some new stuff to read. We'll feed it all back in. We'll make this better.
Nice one.
So thanks for listening very much. Bye.
Bye.